Welcome to the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast, where sexual taboos are broken. I'm Tilly Storm, holistic sex coach and jade egg and tantric sex teacher. I work with luxury lovers, teaching them the art of better sacred sex by helping them remove all their blocks to pleasure, turn on confidence and connection, so they can step into their fullest potential and power as humans and alchemists in the 3D. If you'd like to learn how to release shame and guilt destroying your sex life so you can feel fully sexually liberated and free, you can access my How to Release Shame and Guilt training at www.tillystorm.com/shame. This episode is brought to you by the Sensually Embodied Woman Collective. If you're ready to remove all your blocks to pleasure, turn on and feeling confident and sexy in your body through my paid programs and offerings, then head to www.tillystorm.com today. Welcome back to the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast. It's Tilly Storm, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 6 books for moms and women who aren't moms, but there's some books in particular for moms who want to have an epic sex life, to get their mojo back, to feel like a sexy woman inside, to be able to open to their multi-orgasmic potential and learn what's even possible for themselves to experience, which most women have no idea, and that's why you are here. All right, my loves, these top 6 books, if you're looking for a Christmas gift idea for someone, for a woman you love, or a friend of yours, these books are where it's at. For any woman who really values her sexuality and really wants to reconnect with that part of herself this holiday season and this new year coming up, then check these out and see which one resonates the most, because I guarantee you one of them will call your name and be like, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me about that, Tilly. So the first one I want to tell you about is for moms in particular. It's called Sex After Baby by Debra Pascali-Bonaro. Debra Pascali-Bonaro is a world-renowned doula and doula trainer. She has been working in midwifery and the doula world for decades, like since the 80s, maybe even before that. I don't know, she's been doing it a long time. And she's probably trained more doulas than anyone out there. But she also went on to make a documentary called Orgasmic Birth. You can find it on Netflix. You can go to her website, orgasmicbirth.com, and buy it to support her work. But she also wrote a book called Sex After Baby. And this book is obviously for women with young children, who are mostly newly postpartum, 1 to 2 years postpartum, who have specifically noticed a lack of sexual desire and connection and communication with their partner after childbirth. Now, a lot of my clients in particular are moms, but they are mostly moms of older kids. So there's like this transitional phase where you have moms who have, they really struggle with their sexuality after having a baby. And then for a lot of them, it bounces back. And yet again, for a lot of them, it does not. And I tend to get women who have older children because they have realized that their lack in sexual desire hasn't rebounded even after the first couple of postpartum years, after the breastfeeding relationship has ended. And, all of these markers where doctors say, oh, there's no reason that your libido should be lacking right now. Your hormones are fine. Everything's normal. And they're sitting here thinking, but why don't I want sex? I just want sex, right? So this book is specifically for moms in that early phase of postpartum where they're feeling disconnected. They've just gone through this huge transition with their body. They don't know what to think of their postpartum body anymore. It's probably not the way they want it. They're having a real hard time connecting to it. And it's great for encouraging new moms to consider a new and empowering narrative on pleasure and connection, and how society's narrative has impacted new moms in negative ways. So it gives very specific, real-life, actionable steps that you can take to love your post-baby body and to connect with pleasure every day. Maybe not sexual pleasure, but sensual pleasure. And Debra even quotes me in the book several times. So shout out to Debra for quoting me in this book and for quoting this podcast. She quoted podcast 81, I believe, on the difference between sensuality and sexuality. So if you're a brand new mom and you're having a hard time connecting with your sexuality, starting with your sensuality can be a really great way to go. And she explains the difference using my definition in the book. If this book is calling to you, then you can find it at the link in the show notes. The second book that I recommend to absolutely everyone to read with their partner, if they have one, is called Come As You Are, The Surprising New Science That Will Transform Your Sex Life. I have quoted this book and talked about it on so many episodes on this podcast. If you have not read it yet, you are missing out. This is an absolutely essential book to read with your partner, if you have one, if you want to understand how desire and turn on works, especially if you're a woman who has what we call responsive desire. So if you and your partner struggle with mismatched libidos, if one of you wants it all the time and the other one doesn't want it all the time, and the one that doesn't want it all the time is like, but it matters with the context and, it has to be just right and all of these sorts of things. Well, this book is a must read because it explains the difference between spontaneous and responsive desire, and it helps the partner who is the higher desire partner understand what it's like to be a responsive desire partner and how your sexual accelerators and brakes work to support your turn on or not. And once you learn about the sexual accelerators and brakes, these help you eliminate the brakes, and they help you incorporate more of the accelerators into your life. And she gives really great examples on ways to do that and to help you determine what your sexual accelerators and brakes are in the first place. So get this one on audio and listen to it with your partner in the kitchen because it's going to be a really juicy one for your partner to understand, so they understand more how female sexual desire tends to work. All right, the third book I love to recommend is called Wild Feminine: Finding Power, Spirit, and Joy in the Female Body by Tami Lynn Kent. This one is essential for women who have a disconnected relationship with their vagina or their pelvic floor. They have lots of shame and guilt, tension, soreness, or stress that they feel they're keeping in their pelvic bowl that's inhibiting their sexual and creative energy from freely flowing. I love this book so much because Tami explains how to do pelvic floor mapping. Pelvic floor mapping is this really cool process of actually putting your fingers up there and drawing a map of what's going on in your vaginal wall and your pelvic floor. And if you've never done this before, then you've probably never connected with your deep vagina. So part of this process is about taking your fingers, putting them up there, and noticing, just like in your shoulder muscles, if you have really tense shoulders like I tend to have, I actually go get dry needling every now and then to release some of the tension and to try and show my muscles it's okay to relax them, actually. I store lots of tension and stress in my shoulders, and I also store it in my vaginal muscles. And just like a lot of women, there are knots up there, just like there can be in your shoulders. When you do pelvic floor mapping, you create this deep mind-body somatic connection to your pelvic bowl, which helps you to release blocks by gently pressing into these points where you feel the knots. So you can do something like myofascial release if you're familiar with any of those sorts of techniques and trainings. You can do de-armoring techniques that I teach in our programs and offerings for women, but just doing the pelvic floor mapping to notice the difference between the left side and the right side of the vaginal wall, the front side and the anterior and the posterior side of the vaginal wall, and what these things might mean, because the left side is correlated to your feminine side, the right is connected to your masculine side, and determining where all these points of tension can be such an enlightening, mind-blowing aspect of connecting with your body. And it can help you to connect in this really deep and empowering way, to feel that, oh, right, I know that this point of contraction and this, huge knot is probably connected to everything I'm experiencing with my lack of receiving, or my inability to receive or to let go or to surrender, if you have a huge knot on your left side, right? Tami also does a really great job of helping you understand how the pelvic bowl and all of your sexual energy is tied into your ability to create. So your creative life force, working through this sacral chakra energy that you store in your pelvic bowl, will help you to free up the energetic flow of creativity in your life, which will also allow that flow of sexual energy, of Jing Qi energy that we call in the Taoist tradition, to flow through you with more ease. The fourth book that I like to recommend is Women's Anatomy of Arousal, Secret Maps to Buried Pleasure by Sheri Winston. This book is best for those of you who totally lack an understanding of your female sexual anatomy in the first place. You lack understanding of how it works and what's even possible to experience in the realm of pleasure and orgasm. I love this book because it weaves together the Taoist, tantric, and scientific perspectives, which I adore. I'm all about utilizing modern science and everything that we can learn through modern coaching modalities and weaving ancient wisdom through these two traditions of Taoism and Tantra. So if you don't know where the G-spot is, if you have never heard of the A-spot, or you have no idea how big the clitoral network really is, then you've got to read this book, as it gives you the sexual education that you never got. I also just love her perspective that she gives on women's sexuality and how it's evolved through the ages. So shout out to Sheri Winston for creating such a fantastic book to help women understand their own anatomy. All right, the fifth book that I love to recommend to women and moms is The Emergence of the Sensual Woman, Awakening Our Erotic Innocence by Saida Desilets. This book is really important if you're interested in getting in touch with your divine feminine. If you want to learn the jade egg practices, if you're interested in spirituality, and how that intertwines with your sexuality, this is the book to dive into all things spiritual and sexual. This book really gives the perspective of Taoist practices on and how they have to do with sexuality. So if you're really wanting to get in touch with that yin feminine, the ability to be able to surrender and to receive and experience aliveness and vibrancy and juiciness in life. It's so, so feminine. So this book is an absolute masterpiece for those of you who want to learn the art of the sacred feminine and to dive into all of that. So you can tap into better orgasms and sex and help you see and value tapping into your feminine and sensual nature just as much, if not more, than the masculine nature that we've all been taught. When my gals who do our Sensually Embodied Woman program start to do the jade egg practices, this is the one thing they start to wake up to and realize. We actually had one of our clients share the other day how she was sitting in a restaurant with her family, and for the first time, she's got 4 kids, she started feeling this pulsation, this sense of being alive coming from her vagina, from her pussy, from her cervix. And I was sitting there just cheering her on. I was listening to her video, sharing her celebration, because this is what it means to tap into your sensuality, to experience life as a sensually embodied woman. So yes, read this book if you're interested at all in feeling alive after having kids, or if you don't have any, just feeling alive, even if you just want to feel more alive, if you want to feel that your body has an innate sense of knowingness, that it has its own intelligence, that your body isn't this dead thing that just, was sitting here waiting to expire and decompose, but that it's actually alive with a mind and an intelligence to it. All right, the very last book, but definitely not the least, that I want to share with you to have an epic sex life is The Multiorgasmic Woman, Sexual Secrets Every Woman Should Know by Mantak, Chia. This book is essential learning on how to become multiorgasmic. They also have a how to be a multiorgasmic couple or the multiorgasmic man. So there's 3 different books in the series, but just for you women out there listening who want to have a better sex life, you know how I feel about this. If you've been listening for a while, you know I'm always a proponent of working on your sexuality yourself before you incorporate any of these shifts and changes into your relationship. So do it yourself. Your relationship's going to change, and then you can do it within your relationship. But doing the self-practice, understanding what's even possible in your own body, and doing self-training, it's so important if you want to become multi-orgasmic. So this book explores Taoist and Tantric practices and philosophies to help you understand what's even possible for you to experience as a woman. I'm still dumbfounded by all of the women who want to fight for their right to not have amazing orgasms and epic sex. It's perplexing to me. I don't understand, but there are women who will give me every limitation, excuse under the sun as to why it's not possible for them and why they shouldn't be able to have the sort of orgasms that I know that they can have. So this book explains lots of tantric and Taoist practices. So does Emergence of the Sensual Woman. So if you want to learn the jade egg practice, you can actually learn the jade egg practice by reading this book. You're not going to have the accountability or support or any audio guided practices for it, but you will definitely have a review of the practices and how to do them if you are one of those people who can just read about a practice and then go do it, that's very few people, but I'm sure there's some of you out there. But yes, the Multiorgasmic Woman gives you tons of practices that you can start doing right now to reconnect with your own multiorgasmic genius inside that already knows that it is multiorgasmic, that already is multiorgasmic, and is just waiting for you to unearth all of the negative conditioning, the trauma, and the insensitivity to become multiorgasmic once again. Because yes, my love, you already are multiorgasmic. You were born that way, and it was just your conditioning and shit that's happened to you. That is why you were not. So if you want to get started learning some of the teachings that I actually give my women in the Sensually Embodied Woman program, you can go learn that from these two books in particular, Emergence of the Sensual Woman and The Multiorgasmic Woman. All right, my loves, I'm so hoping that you enjoyed this new episode on my top 6 books for moms who want to have an epic sex life. And if you have any ones that you want to recommend and add to this list, then be sure to email me back and let me know which of them that you really enjoy. And if you are not on our email list, you can go get on that by downloading any of our free resources at www.tillystorm.com and going to the free stuff tab, or just that homepage itself has all of the free things as well. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week, my loves. Bye.